John, tell us how the crumbling of communism led to this great partnership to start a Christian liberal arts college.
I think the phenomena was such that Michael Gorbachev himself, during all the revolutionary changes he made from 1985, 1986 to 1988, when he broke the relationship between communism and atheism, I think during that period of time there was a realization that spiritual values, moral values, needed to be rebuilt in Russia. And that opened up the opportunity for educators to come to the United States and ask the Coalition for Christian Colleges and Universities to help start a Christian college in Russia. It was an unbelievable invitation.
So what was the goal of the university, John?
Our goal was to train a generation of young Christian kids whose parents could never get into universities because they were people of faith, to train these young people to be the next generation of leaders in Russia. So it was an attempt to equip them to be people of faith and to have a moral and spiritual foundation so they could become the future leaders of the country.
Well, what impact then are those students having today on the country?
Well, the sad thing is, after 15 years, the first 10 years of which the Russians were very hospitable, welcomed us in under Boris Yeltsin, but when Putin came to power, particularly after he was in power several years, and the pressure began to turn against the West, it was increasingly difficult for these kids. So a lot of them, some of our best and brightest kids, fled the country. And a lot of them have wound up in Germany, England, Canada, United States, because they saw no opportunities in Russia. So we've left many students behind, of course, but those kids are having a difficult time as the pressure increases on these evangelical churches. It's getting very difficult in Russia right now.
Well, describe some of those obstacles that you started to face then in the 2000s and what's going on now.
Well, when we were building our building, by the way, that took us 10 years to build this building because we wouldn't pay bribes. When we were building this building, the Communist Party and other radical right-wing groups came over and broke windows, demonstrated on the streets in front of us, said, "Americans, get out of the country." But the local government officials that we worked with were very supportive of our school. They wanted it to happen. But gradually over time, the pressure got to be too great. And the security forces from the Kremlin came in and interrupted our school, copied documents, made life very difficult for us.
Well, what do you see behind that? Why was the reason for that?
I don't know that I'll ever know for sure, but I think the philosophy of Putin is, if I can't control it, I don't want it. And private colleges and universities, he could not control. He could not tell us what to teach. So there was an effort. It was not just directed at us. It was directed at all private schools. So the hospitality that we experienced in the early 90s was replaced by 2010 with open hostility. And we were forced to leave.
So what do you see then as the future of Christianity in Russia, and will those students be allowed to return someday?
Oh boy, that's the big question. We planted seeds because our thought was, that's our job. Putin's not going to last forever. And we need to plant seeds for the next generation of people. Now, I think it's very difficult right now for them, but they have suffered so much before. And they've heard stories from their parents and their grandparents about what it was like to live in Russia under oppression. So it's not a complete surprise for them. And I think a lot of them are quietly preparing themselves, trying to build up their churches so that when this new opportunity comes along, they'll be able to give some leadership and step up. That's our hope.
And I know you've written a book about this whole experience called Opening the Red Door. So tell us what you'd like people to take away from your book.
Well, I think the book was designed to really tell people who are interested in how you deal with authoritarian governments or dictatorships, that there are ways where you can make an impact, primarily by going through the churches, non-government associations, people-to-people relationships. We're involved with working with orphans and handicapped children and sponsoring programs for people who have medical issues and alcohol issues. And all of these are demonstrations that Christianity has something to contribute to the future of the country. And those are the kinds of things that we're funding now through our foundation.
Okay, the book is called Opening of the Red Door, and it can be found on Amazon. John Birnbaum, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.